Have you ever had that strange, quiet moment, maybe late at night or during a walk or in the middle of a conversation, where a thought suddenly hits you? Is this really me? Not the version you show to others, not the version that smiles when expected or stays silent to avoid conflict. I'm talking about you, the real you, the one behind the roles, the habits, the polite nods, and rehearsed answers. What if I told you that for most people, that question, "Who am I really?" never gets answered? Not because it can't be, but because we're too busy pretending to be someone we're not, and have been for so long we've forgotten there was ever someone else behind the mask. Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist and deep explorer of the human psyche, believed this wasn't just a random feeling. He believed it was a symptom, a sign that something inside you is tired of being ignored. That somewhere along the line, your life started following a script you didn't write, crafted by your parents, your culture, your religion, or your trauma. And that script has shaped your personality more than your soul ever did. So, let me ask you, when you wake up in the morning, are you living a life that feels authentic, or are you just performing? Jung said the greatest tragedy isn't death. It's reaching the end of your life without ever having truly lived as yourself. And maybe that sounds dramatic. Maybe you're thinking, "No, I know who I am." But pause for a moment. How much of what you believe, what you desire, what you fear, is actually yours? And how much was programmed into you from the outside? The clothes you wear, the career you chose, the partner you're with, the things that make you feel proud or ashamed. How much of that is genuinely you, and how much is a performance built for approval, belonging, or survival? You see, Jung believed that every person builds what he called a persona, a kind of social mask we create to fit into the world. It's not inherently bad, it's a survival tool, but the danger comes when we mistake that mask for who we are, when the actor forgets they're in a play. The moment that happens, life starts to feel hollow. You succeed, but you don't feel fulfilled. You're surrounded by people, but you feel alone. You smile in photos, but at night, the silence echoes with questions you're afraid to ask. That's the real cost of losing connection with your true self. But here's the good news. The fact that you're even watching this, that something in you is curious enough to click, to listen, to wonder, that means you're not asleep. It means there's a part of you that's still alive, still searching, still whispering, "There's more to you than this." And you're right, there is. This video is not going to give you quick fixes, empty affirmations, or surface-level life hacks. That's not what you need. And frankly, that's not what Jung was about. Jung was about digging deep, going inward, facing the parts of yourself you've spent your whole life avoiding, and integrating them into something stronger, something whole. He called it individuation, the process of becoming who you really are beneath all the conditioning. But before we go deeper, I have to be honest with you. This video isn't for everyone. It's not easy to strip away your illusions. It's not comfortable to face the parts of yourself you've repressed. It's not simple to stop pretending and start becoming. But it is liberating. And if you felt like your life is out of alignment, if you felt that strange emptiness that no achievement or relationship seems to fill, if you've ever quietly wondered, what happened to the real me, then this journey might just be the one you've been avoiding your entire life. Because what we're about to explore is not just a psychological theory, it's a mirror, one that will show you what you've hidden, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. If you're still here, if you're still listening, then maybe, just maybe, you're ready. So let's start peeling back the layers. Let's begin where Jung always began, by understanding the masks we wear and the shadow that grows behind them. Because finding your true self doesn't start with looking outward, it begins within. Let's go there. So let's begin with the persona. You see, the persona isn't some abstract philosophical idea, it's something you use every day. Every time you act a little differently around your boss than you do around your friends. Every time you hide your real opinion to avoid conflict. Every time you smile when you want to cry, you're using your persona. Carl Jung described it as the mask we wear to meet the world. It's not inherently false, it's functional. It helps you adapt. It allows you to be polite when you're angry, composed when you're anxious, strategic when you're scared. The persona is your psychological armor, and it is necessary. But the danger is this. When you believe the mask is all there is, over time that mask doesn't just help you function, it starts defining who you think you are. Your job title becomes your identity. Your personality becomes predictable, even to yourself. Your likes and dislikes feel stable, but you can't help wondering, why do I feel so empty even when everything looks fine? The answer? Because you've confused performance for presence. You're living from the outside in, not from the inside out. But this isn't your fault. From the moment we're born, we're trained to put on masks. Think about it. When a child cries, we say, shh. When they get angry, we say, don't be difficult. When they show too much curiosity, they're told to sit still. When they're too loud, they're scolded. Too emotional, they're shamed. So, what does a child learn? If I want to be loved, I need to hide certain parts of myself, and so the mask forms. As we grow older, the persona becomes more sophisticated. We learn which parts of ourselves are acceptable and which parts are too much. We adjust, we adapt, we suppress. Until, one day, we look in the mirror and realize we've become a stranger to ourselves. This is where Jung's second great concept comes in, the shadow. If the persona is what you show the world, the shadow is what you hide. It's made up of everything you've repressed, your insecurities, your desires, your anger, your envy, your shame, but also your authenticity, your creativity, your wildness, your power. Yes, your shadow is not just where you hide the bad, it's also where you bury the real. Let's get brutally honest here. How many times have you swallowed your opinion just to avoid conflict? How often have you told yourself, it's fine, when it wasn't? How often have you ignored your own needs because someone else's comfort felt more important than your truth? Every time you do that, another piece of your true self slips into the unconscious, into the shadow. But the shadow doesn't stay quiet forever. It leaks out. In your passive-aggressive remarks, in sudden outbursts of emotion, in self-sabotaging behavior, in the patterns you swear you've outgrown but keep repeating. It influences your decisions in ways you don't even realize. You think you're choosing freely, but often it's the parts of you you've buried that are choosing for you, from behind the curtain. And here's where things get even more interesting. Jung didn't just say, the shadow exists. He believed it was your duty to confront it. Because here's the paradox. The parts of yourself you're most afraid of are often the key to your power. That suppressed anger? It might be the energy you need to set boundaries. That shameful insecurity? It could be the gateway to your vulnerability, and therefore your deepest connection with others. That hidden ambition you've ignored to play small? It might be your path to purpose. But unless you're willing to look at your shadow, those gifts stay trapped. So, how do you begin to do that? Jung said that awareness is the first step. He encouraged people to look at what triggers them in others, because often, what you hate in someone else is a reflection of something unresolved in yourself. He also emphasized the power of dreams. In dreams, the shadow often reveals itself, disguised, symbolic, but always pointing toward something you've avoided. Pay attention. Your unconscious is speaking to you, if you're willing to listen. But confronting the shadow isn't the end of the journey. It's just the middle. Beyond the persona, beyond the shadow, lies something deeper, the self. The self is your whole being. It's not just who you are at work, or at home, or with your partner. It's the totality of who you are, your light and your dark, your rational mind and your instincts, your conscious personality and your unconscious drives, your masculine and feminine energies, your fears and your desires. To Jung, the journey of life, the real purpose, is not success or fame or happiness. It's individuation, the process of becoming whole. That means integrating the persona without being ruled by it. It means confronting the shadow without being consumed by it. It means bringing the unconscious into consciousness. It means no longer being at war with yourself. Imagine that for a moment, living in harmony with yourself, not in constant judgment, not in inner conflict, not carrying the weight of pretending, but waking up, showing up, and speaking up from a place that feels real, not perfect, not polished, but true. That's the self, but, let me be clear, this isn't a destination. It's not something you achieve and then you're done. It's a lifelong process, and that process requires sacrifice. You will have to let go of certain identities. You will have to unlearn. You will have to sit with uncomfortable truths. You will have to admit that some of the things you've built your life around weren't yours to begin with, but in return, you gain freedom, real freedom. Freedom from people-pleasing. Freedom from self-doubt. Freedom from the exhausting performance of pretending to be okay when you're not. You gain you. And as terrifying as it is to begin that journey, the real danger is not in facing yourself, it's in avoiding yourself. Because the longer you avoid your truth, the more life starts to feel like a slow suffocation. So, let me ask you again, are you ready to find your true self? If you are, then what we'll explore next is absolutely crucial. Because ignoring this process, denying your shadow, clinging to the persona, resisting individuation, comes at a steep price. In the next section, we'll talk about what happens when you avoid this inner work, how the pain shows up in your life, and why the cost of pretending is far greater than the cost of becoming real. Let's go there. What happens when you don't go on this journey? What happens when you ignore the voice within, when you suppress the parts of yourself that feel dangerous, inconvenient, or unlovable? Carl Jung warned us, if you don't face your unconscious, it doesn't disappear. It becomes fate. That's not metaphorical, that's real life. It shows up as that relationship you keep repeating. Different people, same pain. It shows up in the job that looks great on the outside but feels like a slow death inside. It shows up in the friendships that drain you, the habits that sabotage you, the emotions you pretend you've outgrown but still live under your skin. When you refuse to face your shadow takes the wheel. Let's get brutally honest. How many times have you looked back on a situation and thought, why did I do that? You said something that hurt someone and immediately regretted it. You lashed out. You shut down. You ghosted. You begged. You betrayed your own boundaries. You felt hijacked, like something deeper than logic was pulling the strings. That something was your shadow, not because it's evil, but because it's ignored. You see, what we repress becomes distorted. If you repress anger, it doesn't disappear. It becomes passive aggression, chronic resentment, even depression. If you repress sadness, it leaks out as numbness, disconnection, apathy. If you repress your desire to be seen, it might come out as attention-seeking, or worse, self-erasure, so that others never get the chance to reject you. And over time, this distortion bleeds into your sense of identity. You begin to say things like, I'm just not good with people. I always mess things up. I'm too sensitive. I'm not worthy of love. But these aren't truths. These are conclusions formed by a self who has been exiled, denied, edited, rejected by years of conditioning. You are not the story you had to tell yourself to survive. The deeper tragedy, though, is this. The longer you avoid the unconscious, the more the psyche will force you to pay attention, often through pain. It could be a breakdown, a sudden wave of meaninglessness, a loss that shakes you to your core, a crisis that strips away every false identity you clung to for safety. And while those moments feel like punishment, they are often invitations. Invitations to finally meet yourself, but most people don't see them that way. We live in a world that celebrates surface-level happiness, where emotional discomfort is treated like a malfunction instead of a message. We are trained to patch symptoms, not question the root. So, instead of asking, why do I feel this way? We numb. We distract. We drink too much, scroll too much, work too much, date too much, think too much, anything but sit with ourselves. But Carl Jung was clear. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. So, let's talk about what that looks like in daily life. Not as an abstract theory, but as a lived experience. 1. Relationships become echo chambers of the unconscious. When you don't integrate your shadow, you unconsciously project it onto others. You may become overly critical, not because others are wrong, but because they mirror what you haven't accepted in yourself. Or you idolize people who seem complete, attaching to them like lifeboats, then resenting them when they can't carry the weight of your missing pieces. You might fall in love with someone's freedom because you've buried your own. You might fear abandonment not because someone is unsafe, but because you haven't learned how to stay with yourself. Unintegrated parts of us look for mirrors, not because we want to heal, but because we crave wholeness in someone else. 2. Work becomes a stage for the persona. The more identified you are with your persona, the more your career becomes a performance. You become excellent at looking successful, yet hollow inside. Promotions don't fulfill you. Achievements feel like sand slipping through your fingers. You might find yourself stuck in a job that contradicts your values, but you stay. Because the persona needs applause, even if the soul is screaming. Burnout, in this case, isn't just exhaustion, it's existential. It's the soul's way of saying, I can't keep doing this. 3. Chronic dissatisfaction, no matter what you achieve. This is perhaps the most deceptive symptom. From the outside, your life might look great. You're checking the boxes. You have friends, maybe a partner, a stable income. But deep down, there's a dull ache. A feeling that something is missing. That no matter how much you accomplish, it never feels like enough. This is the life of someone who has built everything on the persona, and nothing on the self. The emptiness isn't because you're broken. It's because your real self hasn't been invited into the equation. 4. Emotional reactivity. The shadow leaks. When your shadow remains unconscious, your emotional responses become disproportionate. A small criticism feels like an attack. Rejection feels like annihilation. Someone else's success feels like a personal failure. Why? Because those unprocessed wounds are screaming beneath the surface, and life keeps pressing its thumb on the bruise. But instead of tracing it back to the wound, we blame the trigger. We lash out, we shut down, we build walls, and in doing so we become even more estranged from our true self. 5. The loss of meaning. Jung believed that meaninglessness was the greatest danger of the modern age, and he was right. When you live from the persona, follow someone else's path, suppress your shadow, and ignore the deeper archetypes guiding your soul, life eventually begins to feel like a simulation. You play the game, you follow the rules, but the prize feels empty. The tragedy is not that people are unhappy, it's that they don't know why, and most never stop to ask. They keep chasing the next thing, another relationship, another job, another distraction, hoping it will fill the void. But the void is not out there. The void is the absence of you, the absence of authenticity, the absence of integration, the absence of the self. But here's the good news. And it's real. Even if you've spent years running from yourself, it is never too late to turn inward. In fact, many people don't truly begin this journey until they are cracked open. By crisis, by loss, by the unbearable weight of living a life that isn't theirs. These breakdowns, they aren't the end, they're the call. And in the next part of this video, that's what we'll explore: how to answer that call, how to begin the path of individuation, how to reconnect with the parts of you that have been buried, exiled, or rejected, and finally move toward becoming whole. This is not a quick fix. It's not a weekend workshop or a motivational quote. It's a lifelong transformation. and it starts with one choice: to stop pretending and start remembering. Let's go there together. So, how do you begin? You've realized the mask isn't who you are. You've felt the shadow knocking on your emotional walls. You've seen the patterns, the pain, the dissatisfaction. Now what? Carl Jung didn't leave us in the dark. He gave us a map, not a straight line, but a compass. He called it individuation, the process of becoming whole, of becoming yourself, not who the world expects you to be. But, let's be clear, individuation is not self-improvement. It's not about polishing the persona or becoming a better version of who others want you to be. It's about integration, becoming more you, not less, not cleaner, not more likable, more real. So, let's walk through what this journey actually looks like. Step 1. Radical self-honesty. You cannot transform what you're not willing to confront. The first step is brutal but beautiful. Start telling yourself the truth. Ask yourself, what parts of myself have I disowned to be accepted? What emotions do I avoid because they make me feel bad or weak? In what situations do I wear the heaviest mask? This isn't about blaming your parents, your culture, or your past. It's about ownership. It's about realizing that while you may not have chosen the conditioning, you are now responsible for undoing it. Jung said, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." But terrifying doesn't mean wrong, it means powerful. This self-honesty can start small. Catch yourself in a moment of fake laughter. Feel the tightness in your chest when you're saying yes, but want to scream no. Notice the envy you feel towards someone who's free in a way you're not. These moments are doors. Walk through them. Step 2. Shadow work. The shadow is not a monster. It's an orphaned child, a part of you that was exiled because it scared someone else. So how do you begin shadow work? Start by observing your triggers. Your emotional reactions aren't random. They are often echoes of repressed aspects of yourself. Instead of reacting, reflect. What does this feeling remind me of? What am I accusing them of that I might be projecting? What part of me feels unsafe or unheard right now? Journaling is incredibly powerful here. Write without filters. Let the shadow speak. You may be surprised by what it says. It might be angry. It might be grieving. It might be brilliant. Don't try to fix it. Just listen. You can also practice active imagination, a method Jung created. Close your eyes and invite a part of your unconscious to speak to you, a symbol, an image, a voice. It sounds mystical, but it's deeply psychological. You're giving your unconscious a channel, and it will respond. You don't integrate the shadow by conquering it. You integrate it by giving it a seat at the table. Not the driver's seat, but a voice. And here's the paradox. The more you face the darkness, the less it controls you. Integration is liberation. Step 3. Dismantling the persona. The persona isn't evil. It's necessary. We all need roles to navigate society, but when the role becomes your reality, you lose yourself. So now, we question it. Ask, where did this persona come from? Who taught me I had to be this version of myself? Who am I when no one is watching? Maybe you were praised for being the smart one, the nice one, the strong one. So you shaped yourself around that image. But what if you're also playful, wild, vulnerable, angry, creative? You won't find your wholeness by becoming better at playing a role. You'll find it by dropping the performance. Start experimenting. Be 5% more honest in conversations. Let yourself show irritation or enthusiasm or uncertainty, even if it's awkward. Let someone see a piece of you that you usually hide. It will feel risky, because it is. But it's also real. And every time you act from your truth, even in small ways, you take a step closer to yourself. Step 4. Listening to dreams and archetypes. Your unconscious is always communicating. The problem is, we've forgotten the language. Jung believed that dreams are messages from the unconscious. often symbolic, often strange, but always meaningful. Start a dream journal. When you wake up, even if you only remember fragments, write them down. Over time, patterns emerge: symbols, characters, scenarios. These aren't just random images, they're messages from your deeper psyche. Archetypes often appear in dreams: the child, the parent, the enemy, the wise guide, the lost traveler. Ask yourself, what is this character trying to teach me? What part of me does this symbol represent? You can also notice archetypes in waking life. Are you always stepping into the role of the caregiver, the rebel, the martyr? Integration means balancing them, honoring all the voices within you, not just the socially acceptable ones. You might realize you've lived only as the achiever and neglected the lover, or you've been the protector and denied the artist. Jung's goal was not for us to become one ideal identity, but to become many, to become whole. Step 5. Reconnect with the self. The self is not an ego project. It's not about being authentic on social media or proclaiming your uniqueness. It's deeper, much deeper. It's the inner alignment between your conscious and unconscious. It's when your actions match your values, when your desires don't conflict with your beliefs, when your inner child and inner adult walk hand in hand. You don't become the self, you uncover it. And here's how. Practice solitude. Not isolation, solitude. Time without performance, without validation, without noise. Just you. Follow what Jung called the symbols of the self. What are you drawn to without reason? Art, nature, mythology, music? These are often portals to your deeper truth. Trust your inner compass, even if you don't fully understand it. If something feels off, it probably is. If something feels alive, follow it. The self is revealed through experience, not theory. You'll know you're on the path not because everything feels good, but because it feels real. Your relationships become deeper, your emotions more honest, your choices more deliberate, and slowly you begin to feel home. Not because you found the perfect life, but because you finally returned to yourself. But this is not a one-time epiphany. It's not a destination. It's a lifelong dance, between light and shadow, between ego and essence. There will be setbacks. You will fall back into old patterns. That's part of the work. You're not becoming perfect. You're becoming whole. And in the final part of this video, we'll bring everything together and talk about what it truly means to live as your true self. We'll explore how this journey doesn't just change your mind, it changes your world. Let's close the loop. If you've made it this far, pause for a moment. Really, take a breath. Because you just walked through something most people will spend a lifetime avoiding. You've looked beneath the mask. You've acknowledged the shadow. You've glimpsed the possibility that you are far more and far deeper than what you've been told. And if nothing else, I hope you realize this now. You are not broken. You are buried beneath the persona you've perfected, beneath the roles you've learned to play, beneath the parts of yourself you've pushed into silence. There is something real, something untouched, something waiting to be remembered. Carl Jung didn't want to fix people, he wanted to free them. He believed that the greatest tragedy was not suffering, but living a life disconnected from one's soul. And the way out isn't through pretending, avoiding, or chasing approval. The way out is in. To summarize, the persona is the mask you wear to be accepted. But it's not the whole truth. The shadow is everything you've denied or repressed, and it holds power, not just pain. The self is the deep, integrated you, the union of all your parts, conscious and unconscious. Individuation is the journey of becoming whole, and it begins the moment you decide to stop lying to yourself. It's not a straight path, it's messy, it's humbling, but it's also liberating in a way no external success can ever replicate. So, here's my invitation to you. Don't just watch this video and move on. Do something. Write a journal entry tonight where you're brutally honest with yourself. Notice a mask you wear, and take it off just once in a safe space. Have a conversation with your shadow, and listen without judgment. Sit in silence, and ask the self to speak. Because awareness is nothing without action, and transformation doesn't happen from consuming ideas. It happens from living them. Now, I want to hear from you. What part of this journey resonated with you the most? Have you ever felt like you were living someone else's life? And if so, what woke you up? Share your story in the comments. Not just for yourself, but for someone else who needs to hear that they're not alone. And if you found this meaningful, I strongly recommend watching the next video. It dives even deeper into the hidden forces that shape your behavior, including the unconscious archetypes that influence your life, whether you see them or not. The link is right here. Remember, the more light you shine on your unconscious, the less it controls you. You are not here to live a script. You are here to become whole. And that begins right now.